three hosts. You have myself, Tim. Good evening. You have Lachlan.
Howdy.
And Ruben.
Hey, I always thought of myself as more of a co-host.
Ooh, co-host. Well, if we're all co-hosts, doesn't that make us hosts?
I don't know. I just like co-host. That's got a good ring to it.
Are you appointing Tim as the lead anchor, and we are just the co-hosts? Is that the?
Yeah.
So someone's a sports reporter and someone's a weatherman. I don't think that works. Like, if you think about gaming and you play co-op, it doesn't mean that you're less of a gamer. It's just multiple gamers. So
I just read the teleprompter. That's all.
Yes, well, at least some of us can. All right, so our drinks this evening. I am drinking Japanese whiskey once again. What are you drinking, Lachlan?
I'm gone to WA with a Little Creatures Pale Ale. Delicious.
Ooh.
Oh, I love Little Creatures.
Pale
They're
ale.
good beers.
How about you, Ruben?
I'm drinking a Pinot Grigio, or in these parts it's known as a Pinot Grigio, which is a white wine. This one's actually from Italy. From somewhere called Trentino. Apparently, the waters flow from the Alps around their winery. I don't know. I can't taste the Alps, but who knows?
You can't taste the Alps.
Have you been to the Alps?
Quote of the episode.
But have you been to the Alps?
I've not.
Maybe you are.
I've never been to the Alps. That's entirely possible.
It could be just
be
revealed. One day you'll go to the Alps, you will fall on your knees and lick the ground and be like, Pinot Grigio.
There it is.
Wow. All right, so how'd you guys go? Did you get your reading done this week?
Yeah, all good. It's been enjoyable. I don't know. Like, I must say, I am missing the story from Plato a little bit, but I think this has still been some good reading though. Quite enjoying it.
Do you feel like it's a bit more grown up, like a bit more serious, because it causes you to reflect more? Because it's just like, here's a statement, bang, and then all you have to do with that statement is either read the next one or chew on it.
Well, I mean, we're having to do the chewing, that's for sure. But yeah, look, I guess the thing is, it's not that we're kind of sort of sorting through the read to try and find the gold to talk about. It's like, here's the gold. If you can't recognize the gold, you need to think harder, so. And I guess given I put myself out there as a hack, sometimes I need to read it a few times to try and uncover it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more. It's certainly a lot more. This is what to do. There was not much. This is what to do stuff in Plato.
And I think there's a bit more sort of implied stuff to think about here too, because some of them are quite short, and so if you're looking for meaning in it, I think I have a tendency to look at the surface level first, and then to have to sort of think a bit harder about what's the real message here. It can't just be the surface stuff. So I tend to be looking at things, I suppose, trying to look at a couple of layers deep.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Well, let's get right into it. So we're up to, where did we finish? No, we didn't finish on...
Up to number 5.
Women and children dying. We went on to chapter 4, so that means we're up to part 5. So I will... we'll jump over to our reading and then we will discuss.
Part 5. What disturbs men's minds is not events, but their judgments on events. For instance, death is nothing dreadful, or else Socrates would have thought so. No, the only dreadful thing about it is men's judgment that it is dreadful. And so when we are hindered or disturbed or distressed, let us never lay the blame on others, but on ourselves, that is, on our own judgments. To accuse others for one's own misfortunes is a sign of want of education. To accuse oneself shows that one's education has begun. To accuse neither oneself nor others shows that one's education is complete.
Okay, so what disturbs men's minds? Starting with this, so judgment on events. So this is something that I thought about through the week. Those who know me know I've often overthought things, and so many times this week, after what we read last week, I caught myself in a moment feeling, oh, this is a problem, or this is this, or this is that, going, this is but an impression. And this is not at all what it seems, so what is this really? And this speaks to that a bit more, I think. It's about our judgment on events. So straight away, statement that I'm on board with, and then it goes to that death thing, and I'm like, oh, I feel like we just took a very big jump. How did you feel about it, guys?
Yeah. I was super pumped when he gave our boy Socrates a shout out.
I was the same.
So anyways, he says what disturbs men's minds is not events but judgments of events. My dumbed down version of that is basically that you can't control other people or events, but what you can control is your reaction. But then he goes on to talk about Socrates and death, and he says death is not dreadful, or else Socrates would have thought it so. Now, we had a big discussion about what we should read first. I think to understand Socrates' thoughts on death, you kind of have to go to the Apology, which is one of the ones that we didn't read first.
Right. Well, I know that Socrates was concerned that you forget everything because you go through that lake of forgetfulness or whatever it was. Perhaps I died. I've forgotten exactly what it is, but
suffice for today's discussion. Basically, Socrates didn't, and you can infer it from the passage anyway. But Socrates didn't think death was a big deal. He's like, it ain't no thing.
Yeah, well, you sort of got that impression even when they were sort of talking through death in the Republic anyway. It's just a step in the process as far as he's sort of concerned. But I did have to kind of laugh about it, that he was leaning so heavily on Socrates, as though, I think Socrates is supposing something, or sort of leaning on some alleged ancient wisdom around what happens in death and all that sort of thing. But in any case, I suppose that sort of, in some sense, is irrelevant, because what he's really just talking about is, no matter what the event is what the event is. How you feel about it is kind of a choice, I guess he's saying. And that if you're choosing to, put a slant on it, that that's dreadful and it's a bad thing, then that's just sort of baggage you're putting on yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the judgment of it is the problem, not the situation itself.
You can't change the situation, basically, is what he's saying.
Yeah, we talked about last week, saying, death's a natural assumption that is going to occur, because that's the end to life, so it's got to happen. So, it's just an expectation, So I think that was also part of one of the other learnings. Maybe it comes up later as well. Actually, I think it might have been something from Seneca around thinking about what the worst possible scenarios can be. And by understanding what the worst possible scenarios can be, i.e., I know someone's going to die eventually, be preparing yourself for it when it happens, in a way. So it's not a surprise.
I think it did answer one of our questions from earlier, whether it's the right way to approach a text like this is through that kind of Socratic lens. So I think this kind of answers that question for us, because he's obviously thinking of Socrates in some capacity.
For sure.
It also feels a bit like a Sunday school answer that sometimes non-Christians criticize Christians for. It's like, oh, yeah, Jesus said so.
Because the word says it so.
So it's like, well, Socrates says it's cool, so it's all good. You know, we don't have to justify that argument. It's like, he was on board, so
100%.
it's all good.
Yeah.
But if anyone is interested in Socrates' thoughts on death, he does talk about it, and reasons it out in the Apology.
Yeah, we'll get to that one day.
We'll get that one day.
So I like what he moves on to, though, where he says not to lay the blame on others for our feelings. That's a really hard thing to do. Sometimes people hurt your feelings or frustrate you, and quite often it's not intentionally. But even if it is intentionally, there's some wisdom here. Like, at times you come across difficult people in life, and if you can just accept that that's a thing you can't control. You can't control that person's difficult, but you can absolutely control how you respond, and whether or not you let that harm you. Yeah, it's a good piece of advice.
I think it's good for most everyday stuff. I just find it funny how he just keeps pulling death into it, and I guess it's the most extreme example that he can utilize, right? And so that maybe that's why it's kind of the go-to when he's trying to make these sort of positions. But I think that is a harder. It's always a harder one to think about, and I suppose that's why he's putting it in there. But someone could die because of some other person's fault, right? A child gets run over and hit on the road or something like that, and dies in a tragic sort of sense. It's pretty hard not to blame somebody else when you know someone else is to blame, right? So maybe it's just about sort of understanding and just understanding your feelings on that, as much as being, how do I put it? Aside from just knowing who may be responsible for something, it's okay to know if somebody is responsible, but is that going to change the situation? I suppose it's not, or it isn't.
Well, I think that's why straight after that he talks about the education. To accuse others for your own misfortune means you're not educated. If you blame yourself, then you're partly educated. And if you don't blame anybody, then you're fully educated.
Yeah, it is tough, because there are two levels in which way to think about this, because let's just say someone steals your shit, right? That's obviously their fault, right? So you can control your reaction to that, but that doesn't eliminate the fact that they've taken your stuff. But then I don't think he's calling people to be passive. I think he's just calling people to to control their reaction.
Well, one of the four virtues of the Stoics was justice, so I think they would uphold that justice has to be served in that scenario.
But that would suggest that you do it dispassionately, which actually makes sense, because if you're acting out of revenge or anger, then you're less likely to be dispassionate in the way that you dispense justice, and you're likely to become unjust. So I think it still stands up. But I just think that, practically speaking, it's hard to sit there and go, if someone actually does you a real wrong, and it really was their fault, I think you can still lay blame at their feet. But
well, does that mean that, does that demonstrate that the pursuit of being just or of virtue is actually unnatural, maybe, or unusual?
No, I think it's I don't. Maybe unnatural is not the right word, but if you go back to Socrates' thing about the human spirit, where you've got the man, the lion, and the hydra. People generally are going to. The man is supposed to be reason, right? So unless you're actually stopping and thinking about things, that reason part of man's not going to be the bit that's in control. So people, I guess, more naturally would have the lion or the hydra in control, unless they think about it. So I suppose that's where he's coming from too. Is like you gotta think about these things.
But I think, one of those virtues that we're always talking about in Republic, and again, sort of getting Platonic on it, was about temperance. And this is almost like a technique specifically for temperance. And just trying to cool your jets and think about things logically rather than emotionally. And
that's true. If you're not exercising temperance, that's also going to be a hindrance to justice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be a tricky line to walk, because you'd have to think, if you were fully exercising this principle, I don't know, maybe it isn't the way it's intended, but the way it sort of sounds, if you're taking on a dry read, you're going to be insulating yourself fully. And you think if something like pretty tragic happened, it's natural to feel something.
It's interesting that you put it that way, because it was something that I was thinking about. I didn't know whether to raise it or not, but what he's describing is almost like disconnecting yourself. I don't know whether that's the right word. Disassociating yourself from the event. I wonder, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm wondering what a psychologist would say about that, whether that's healthy in the extreme or not.
I think it would definitely go against modern thinking, which is you need to feel everything, express everything, and
admit your feelings.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not my experience. When I've seen psychologists before, and this is essentially what they taught.
Right.
It's just because obviously it was for anxiety for me, so it's like you have this feeling, you need to stop and check the facts and remove the emotion, and then change your response and control your response.
That might be a different sort of set of rules around, like, sort of anxiety versus maybe dealing with grief, or so I suppose it's different things in the toolkit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Well, can you imagine like a scenario where this could become a negative, like if you were too like detached? I suppose you could be. I don't think that's what he's advocating for, but
well, I think certainly you would see. I think people who work in really high stress situations, like particularly, like, let's say people who work in emergency rooms, or like ambos or something like that, and have to kind of like separate and detach the work and the job and the getting it done from the emotional feeling of the people. And I know, like, people sometimes end up with like PTSD over stuff like that, and it's really hard to like people who work in that job for a long time, I think often are able to do that sort of petitioning and able to separate things. And people who aren't able to stick it out have difficulty separating the two.
You're right. That could be where it's dangerous if you develop a coping mechanism where you detach yourself from the facts, not the facts, but you detach your emotional reaction to what's happened in front of you. If you were to do that all the time, I'm guessing you'd probably find it difficult to form relationships, or it could be damaging to intimate relationships. If you have somebody who's expecting an emotional reaction out of you, and you've developed this habit of just not reacting at all, people would potentially read that as you being callous.
Well,
I'm sure that's happened to people.
Could wind up impacting your morality, I suspect, on things as well. Imagine if you're working on vaccines, doing clinical trials, and you're thinking about the greater good, and so you separate the emotion around human testing on something that's maybe a bit sketchy because you feel that it's something that we need quickly and need to, jump a few hurdles in order to do something when you can separate that and justify that in your own mind. I don't know. I think it's just obviously that's a different sort of tract, but I think it's just a technique of partitioning humanity maybe from pure rationality. I'm not sure.
Well, let's keep going.
Sorry, went an extreme turn there.
No, that's all right. Sometimes you got to finish on a.
We don't need Socrates to drag things out. We can do that ourselves.
We'll do it ourselves. That's right. All right, let's jump to 6.
Part 6. Be not elated at an excellence which is not your own. If the horse in his pride were to say, I am handsome, we could bear with it. But when you say with pride, I have a handsome horse, know that the good horse is the ground of your pride. You ask then what you can call your own. The answer is the way you deal with your impressions. Therefore, when you deal with your impressions in accord with nature, then you may be proud indeed, for your pride will be in a good which is your own.
All right, so this is an easy one. There's a bold statement for you. Horse. Hang on. It's time for an example.
Have you got a handsome horse there?
He's got a handsome destiny gun, I'm sure.
Hey, what a long face.
Here we go.
There we go.
Here is a handsome horse statue. So,
indeed,
I got this from a previous
front of a
job.
Viking boat.
Previous job. Worked with some Greek guys and got given a horse statue of some Greek horse.
It does look Greek. I was going to say that.
Trojan, perhaps. Got anything hiding inside it?
Well, no, it's hollow, and it's not anatomically correct.
That's the problem.
It's metal. Yes. So, what this is basically saying is, don't be proud of the horse statue because it's handsome. Be proud of your control of your impressions. So I think this is an easy one.
Yeah.
Like, that makes sense. Like, me being proud of this horse statue makes no sense because I didn't make it. I have no control over how it was made or how it looked. It just exists. Why be proud about that?
Right. You don't. Yeah, you don't. I mean, you own it, but you don't kind of own its existence or what happens to it.
I'm not responsible for its beauty.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So, what can you call your own?
Well, my impressions.
In the passage, the answer is.
And they're not talking about, like, can you do a good Cockney impression?
The way you deal with your impressions. Can you do a Schwarzenegger?
Oh, I'm not doing Schwarzenegger. That's so cliche.
Come on!
There it is. There we go. I think this one's pretty sweet.
All right, let me try to complicate.
But the only part I will pick apart is the in accord with nature. So your impressions in accord with nature.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go.
Yeah. All right, we'll go there. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I wasn't sure. I was hoping maybe you guys could fill me in a little bit, but so therefore, deal with your impressions in accord with nature. So I'm not sure what he means by nature. I've got a couple of ideas. One is when he's talking about nature, he's talking about that Socratic idea of the individual. You know, that whole republic goes through, you know, what is justice in the state and what is justice in the individual, and then they list those virtues. So perhaps that's what he's talking about, or he could be talking about more I think also from the Republic, Socrates talks about, you have natural abilities. Like, if you're good at pottery, then be a potter. If you're good at soldiering, then be a soldier. So I don't know whether that's what he means by nature. So I don't know. What did you guys think?
I'd previously read something else written about nature in the sense of the Stoic writings and all that sort of thing. And it was about that like harmony and balance of the natural order of life and the universe and everything, if you know what I mean. And it was about, just balance and rightness and truth. And I mean, nature is sort of like literal in the sense that they mean the way of nature. So
being what you are supposed to be.
Yeah, and playing your part in that universal role, being true to nature and in harmony with nature.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't mean like being like a tree loving hippie, but I think it's just kind of like playing the role which you're intended to play as a good citizen and looking after your fellow man and that sort of thing. Living up to the virtues as they sort of define.
I read it differently again. So I thought when you're saying deal with your impressions in accordance with nature, it's like what he's saying about your impressions have to be aligned with nature. So, like what we're talking about last week about not wanting, like not desiring something that isn't in accordance with nature, like never wanting your wife to die. It's not in accordance with nature. So making
that
sure
goes back to his whole. That goes to his whole thing about it is what it is.
So actually,
if there's a storm that blows your house down, then that's an event. That's nature.
Yeah. So take pride when you control your impressions to align with nature. That's
with the way things are. Literally, nature, as in what happens, what things are.
Yeah, that's how I read that.
I like your reading better than mine.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, we need a Greek scholar on here. Let's see if we're going to get one. But it'd be interesting to know what word is used, what word is translated from with nature and things like that.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Okay, let's move on to number 7. I'm comfortable to move to 7. Let's go.
Part 7. When you are on a voyage and your ship is at anchorage and you disembark to get fresh water, you may pick up a small shellfish or a truffle by the way, but you must keep your attention fixed on the ship and looking towards it constantly to see if the helmsman calls you. And if he does, you have to leave everything or be bundled on board with your legs tied like a sheep. So it is in life. If you have a dear wife or child given you, they are like the shellfish or the truffle. They are very well in their way. Only if the helmsman call, run back to your ship, leave all else, and do not look behind you. And if you are old, never go from far the ship, so that when you are called, you may not fail to appear.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Ruben, you're saying that this is your favorite one?
This is my favorite so far. I don't understand it, but I like it when they go on nautical. Harks back to the Republic where Socrates is talking about that ship analogy where they're all fighting with the captain. But no, I like it. But my question is, the reason I don't understand it is, what the hell is the ship in this scenario?
Philosophy.
I must admit,
I thought maybe it's fate. I thought, is the ship fate? So don't miss your fate.
Ooh.
I must admit, I thought about this more about and it's probably not right, but in that original sort of Platonic sense about your life's purpose. And I don't know, just maybe not necessarily like your job or something like that, but what is the core focus of your life? Like what's important? And I suppose focusing on the thing that's important rather than getting kind of caught up in the side quests, if you know what I mean. So when you're playing The Witcher, don't get stuck on Gwent and instead follow the story.
Okay,
Wow.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that. But then, why is it that if you don't do that, you will be bundled up with your legs tied like a sheep and dragged onto the boat? I'm assuming.
Well, no, I don't think that. I think it's more like you're supposed to keep an eye on the ship who's going to like let you know if you're safe, because you're probably in some like unsafe harbor just getting water or whatever. So you're going to wind up a slave, right? Because that's what used to happen in those ancient times, right? So I think they're saying you're going to get captured by enemy troops or something like that if you're not paying attention to the core signals and things like that.
And if he does, you have to leave everything or be bundled up.
Because you got to keep looking back constantly to see if the helmsman's calling to you. Hey, danger, danger, like.
Yeah, I follow.
I saw this as a warning, and it's like,
that's
if you're not paying attention
that's pretty good.
Oh,
you like that?
Better than
we're having some latency issues.
That's good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I must admit I did a little bit of reading and cheating on this one after I sort of came up with my own idea. So that bit I told you is my own idea. I did see some other opinions on it, being like that the ship was like God, or I think what Rubes, what you may be referring to, like the fates or something like that, which was something we talked about.
Yeah.
When you sort of went to the afterlife, and it was, basically about living a good life and paying attention and not deviating from that righteous sort of pathway. Maybe not righteous, maybe the wrong word, but you know what I mean?
No, I think it is the right word.
Yeah.
No, I think that is the right word.
Keeping you on track.
Yeah, I think that's the right word. I think you've convinced me, because in their thought system, they're all about, the forms, that what's really important is those virtues, those higher purposes. So therefore, to live that way would be righteous. And I guess what he's saying is don't let these other things distract you, and stay focused on that. I mean, once again, he goes to if you're your wife or child. He kind of sounds like you're saying, look, even leave your wife and child behind if that's what you have to do to meet your fate, which is
I think there's also like a core thing too, just with this sort of Stoic mentality too, that if you are sort of living those fundamental values, it's almost like things will sort of take care of themselves, if you know what I mean. Because if you're living a virtuous life and you're not, doing ills to other people, why would they seek retribution on you that's going to endanger your family or something like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, if you look after yourself first, because you're in control of yourself rather than anything else, and you make sure that you stay pure and on the pathway, then, things will probably be all right. You know what I mean? I mean, they are what they are anyway, but...
That's a similar message to what I've had from personal trainer over the years, is like, you can't be the best dad and husband that you want to be unless you look after yourself first. So if you're eating crap, you're not exercising, you feel horrible all the time, and you say, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm making sacrifices to look after these other people, then you're not doing that to the best of your ability because you're neglecting yourself. So I think it's a similar idea.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. And look, I must say, I give that kind of advice to my wife as well, right? A side conversation here, but like she gets migraines and things, and quite often if she hasn't sort of eaten properly, she might wind up with a migraine, and it'll be, I'm so busy running after the kids, I didn't even stop to sort of eat lunch or something. And I always use that thing about, they say on the airlines, fit your own oxygen mask first. Because if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anyone else. I think in a way that's part of this philosophy as well, is just get yourself sorted, get yourself on the pathway, and you can help other people and do the right thing as well,
I like that example of the masks in the airplane. That's a good example.
Good way to think about it. I like the how it tags on the end. And if you're old, never go far from the ship.
Well, I mean, that makes sense though. Like, particularly if you're on that pathway, right? Because if you're going to stray at the end of your life, it's like you're so close. Like you're about to go see the fates, and you're going to go and throw it all away now by doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think that's why initially that was the only explanation I could come up with, is that must mean the fates, but it was that sentence that made me think that.
Good instinct.
Well, let's keep going. Let's go. We're on a roll. Let's go to number 8. Let's go.
Part 8. Ask not that events should happen as you will, but let your will be that events should happen as they do, and you shall have peace.
All right, this one's super short, number 8, but it's straight to the point. It's basically
I even shortened.
saying...
I summarized it. I summarized it to like 5 words. I'm like, this is basically saying it is what it is.
It is what it is. That should be a T-shirt with Epictetus' head. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Along with mediocrities.
Do you reckon that's roughly what he's saying?
Yeah, it's like you can't impart your will on the universe, only on your own actions. So if you try and do that,
no,
you're
but
just
seriously, I do hear people say that, and rightfully so. Like particularly if you work in an office, people are like, "Why do I have to do this? Why is everything so hard?" And then someone was walking and go, "Look, it is what it is. Like, you're not going to change it."
Yep, and everyone will hate that person. Stop being logical, damn you.
But he's saying be happy that it is what it is.
Yeah, he's saying you have peace.
Yeah. So I want that.
Yeah, well, it's just like a waste of energy, I think is the thing. You're not going to change it. So you may as well focus on what you can do.
So let's think about
I think it's like, you go.
Well, let's think about this, like, if you're watching a football game, and you got Panthers versus Eels, right? And you're like, okay, rather than desiring Panthers to win, which certainly is more likely than the Eels winning, then...
This is NRL, by the way, for our overseas listeners.
Oh, yeah. So Australian football, which
rugby.
is not AFL, but rugby league.
It's rugby, mate.
Rugby league. Rugby league. Anyway, so rather than cheering for your team, you would be sitting there going, I hope events happen as they will, rather than go Panthers or go Eels. So then that way, it doesn't matter who wins, you won, because all you wanted was for the game to conclude, or happen how it went.
The fun out of watching the game.
Well, potentially.
You suck the life out of it. Like, is that a problem with this philosophy?
Maybe, but maybe then the fun becomes watching everyone else suffer while you're there in bliss.
While your team's losing because it's the will of the universe.
Yeah.
That got dark. I
You'll
feel
be at
nothing,
peace.
so now I feel nothing about what is happening around me, so I'll indulge in other people's sufferings, is what you just said.
Oh, God. I don't know. I was trying to think of this in terms of, this sounds like really Bill and Ted again, but it's like kind of, or maybe even like the Big Lebowski or something. Like, just go with the flow, man. Like, there's no point in going against the current. Just get on your Lilo and just go
The
on
Big
that.
Lebowski, just on a side note, The Big Lebowski is like probably my number one favorite movie of all time.
Mine too.
Yeah, boy.
Oh,
The dude abides. Don't you worry.
I like it, but it's not number one. But I do like
It's pretty
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's about as close to a number one that I've got.
I do like White Russians, which I only drank after watching that. So they were good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, you'll have peace if you will that things work out the way they will. Like, I guess the other way I think about that is like if you're going for a test or you hand in an assignment or something like that, and you know you've done everything you can, and now it's like, I've done it, I've handed it in, the result is the result. And letting go. You know, just going, whatever the result is, that's now what it is. It's out of my control.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
that's just like your opinion, man.
I was hoping you'd go there. I love it.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Okay,
So
let's
good.
move on to number 9.
Part 9. Sickness is a hindrance to the body, but not to the will, unless the will consent. Lameness is a hindrance to the leg, but not to the will. Say this to yourself at each event that happens, for you shall find that though it hinders something else, it will not hinder you.
I thought we were.
Okay, well, yes. Okay, so talking about hindrances to the body, and side note, it is said that Epictetus did have a dodgy leg, and one of the folklores about that is that his master was twisting it, and he was saying, if you keep doing that, you're going to break my leg. And then he kept doing it. It's like, if you keep doing that, you're going to break my leg. And then it broke, and he's like, you broke my leg.
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
one
not
of the stories,
confirmed.
right?
They're not sure if he was born with the dud leg or if it was his master, but that's the story about if it was his master, how it went down.
Either
Yeah,
way,
it sounds like the kind of things. Yeah, right. Exactly. It sounds like the kind of things that his disciples have made up. They're like, yeah, that Epictetus, he's such a boss. When his master broke his leg, he's just like, yeah, man, it's like the will of the universe or whatever. You may
Yeah, but
break my
apparently
leg,
he's
but
like,
you will not break my will.
it's like, I told you that would happen. Why did you do that? So, anyway, so thoughts. So you can have an injury, but it doesn't necessarily impact the will, unless the will consents.
Well, this did actually. What came to mind for this one is, for me, handicap athletes. Like the way that the just pure force of will, they become athletes despite the disability that they've got, and they compete, and that's pretty amazing stuff, really.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's just separating the body and the mind, and maybe it's about sort of building resilience too, and just I don't think like athletes in general do that sort of thing too, like where they're just kind of it becomes a mental game outside of a physical game sometimes, and kind of separating those two things in a way. But yeah, I like the example. I think it's just a good mindset, just to be able to get through things from a resilience sort of perspective.
Yeah, I've seen it in practice too, like with people I know who have had cancer. To just stay strong with their mind, even though the body is not doing well. Their mind is still strong, and they've still got courage, and hold up to their values. It's good.
Right.
But you
Well,
could see it in an
apparently-
example like Stephen Hawking or something, though, too. I mean, that guy, is physically like broken, but put his mind to work and just worked his way around it to achieve amazing stuff.
Yeah. What were you saying there, Ruben?
Yeah, it's gone. I don't know what I was going to say.
Sorry, Rich.
No. Oh no. Yeah, I just remembered. No, the apparently, and if anyone's listening to this is actually a scientist, probably get really upset with me. But apparently, that's one of the reasons that they have to do double-blind research for medical stuff, because not only is there the placebo and then the opposite of the placebo effect, but apparently it's accepted that in medicine, sometimes a person's positive outlook has an actual physical effect on their recovery.
Yeah, right.
So that's why you've got things like the placebo effect, and there's a technical term for the opposite of the placebo effect as well.
Yeah. Interesting.
There you go. Well, let's go to 10.
Part 10. When anything happens to you, always remember to turn to yourself and ask what faculty you have to deal with it. If you see a beautiful boy or a beautiful woman, you will find continence in the faculty to exercise there. If trouble is laid on you, you will find endurance. If ribaldry, you will find patience. And if you train yourself in this habit, your impressions will not carry you away.
Let's go.
You're going good.
Okay, so we've had a shout out to Socrates earlier in the book, and now we're getting some shade cast at Glaucon. So, if you see a beautiful boy or a beautiful woman, you'll find continence in the faculty to exercise.
Doesn't have to be beautiful. Can have an imperfection, and it's still okay. It's all good.
Yes. Yeah, Glaucon
Just like
approves.
Glaucon.
Yeah,
like
Glaucon
that.
approves of this statement.
Now that we've said that, you're going to have to figure out which episode we talked about Glaucon, and you're going to have to link it in the description.
Yep.
No, you don't have to do that. That's too much. That's too much work.
All right, so let's start at the beginning of this part. So, what do you think about the what faculty you have to deal with it statement?
What?
Go, Ruben.
No, I thought of this as kind of like an extension of what he's been saying about the impressions. So he's like, you can only control your impressions, but this is kind of like the next step. And it's like, well, if there's something that something happens to you, ask that question. This is just an impression, but then ask, well, what faculties have I got? What can I do?
Yeah.
I must say, I actually looked up another translation because I was finding it a bit hard to follow. So if you don't mind, I'll read the other translation, which is really quite different. But anyway,
Go for it.
Oh,
with every accident, ask yourself what abilities you have for making a proper use of it. If you see an attractive person, you'll find that self-restraint is the ability you have against your desire. If you're in pain, you'll find fortitude. If you hear unpleasant language, you'll find patience. And thus habituated, the appearance of things will not hurry you away along with them.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Wait, can you read that last sentence again?
Yeah. You'll find patience. And thus habituated, the appearances of things will not hurry you away along with them.
Oh, yeah. Good.
That makes sense. So, like for example, you're not going to run off with the chick. You're going to stick to your original path. You won't get distracted by it.
The main squeeze rather than the side chick.
Well, that
Yes,
won't
it's
make,
kind of like an
that won't make some
acknowledgement.
of our loved ones happy if applied to The Witcher 3, because that'll mean that it won't be Yennefer that Geralt hooks up with. It'll be Tris.
Truth.
Not that person
Timmy
will ever listen to this.
Timmy finally hooked into The Witcher 3.
Yes,
about
I have.
5 years
It's
after it
very
came
good.
out.
Better late than never. Hey, look, it's taken me 2,500 years to get into Socrates, so it's all good.
You were around
5
that long?
years isn't too bad. Well, aren't our souls like eternal or something? Didn't we establish that?
That's
Yeah,
right.
if you accept Socrates.
There you go.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
legit.
what
Yes, I do
I
prefer
found
that
interesting-
translation too, because it removes the awkward part about finding a beautiful boy.
What I find interesting about what now that I sort of kind of understand it a little bit more, what I find interesting about that is his admitting the fact that you're supposed to have your impressions and reason with your impressions, but he's also then going a step further and saying, well, those impressions are going to influence you. So it's like you almost need to then insulate yourself against the influence of those impressions.
Yeah, look, I think he's trying to get you to be really considered in your approach and self-aware, and that you need to, really give strong thought to it and not give in to base desires, but sort of apply it against those virtues again. Is what you want to do the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, I think for this week we will stop there, working through the book at part 10. So let's take a little wander down to the pub for lots of us, if we can.
I've missed the pub.
So, pub for lots of us topic. First one, Gran Turismo 7. Lachlan, have you watched any footage for that? My goodness, it looks pretty. It looks so nice.
I've got my name on a wait list for a PS5, if that's what you are asking.
Nice.
Yeah, it looks
Nice.
legit.
It's return to form. That's what it looks like. So I was
hopefully.
a long time PlayStation and Gran Turismo fanboy.
Me too.
And I hope it doesn't disappoint.
Gran Turismo 5 Mercedes here.
There you go. There you go.
But I always played Gran Turismo 1. I still have my original copy of Gran Turismo 1, which I can play on my PlayStation 2 that I have.
Yeah.
But the thing that I think looks great is they've gone, Forza does the whole, you can change the engine and do body kits and all this sort of stuff, and they've just taken it a whole nother level. So looks like you can order new bodies, you can do body widening, you can select any paint color from any
think
manufacturer you unlock. It looks amazing.
Yeah, look, I think that was something that you could do back in stuff like Gran Turismo 3 and 4, not to like a huge degree, but you could still do modifications and things back then. And they sort of moved away from that to trying to be more of like a really hardcore simulator. And so I think they took some of the fun out. And I think it's great that they're going to have a bit of a mix now, where it's still going to be like a great driving game, but it's going to have a lot of that sort of stuff that like people who are actually into cars, not just driving, are going to enjoy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Looks a lot more about the design and giving it your own flavour. Looks really good. Have you seen it at all, Ruben? Have you seen how it looks?
Not really, just tiny bits and pieces. But I just want that licensing system back. I always thought it was the best. I love that you had to like pass challenges to get to that next level of license. So I hope they get that.
Yeah, that's back.
Yeah.
I felt like
I
that
like
was
that.
something that was really missing.
Yeah.
Alright, we're back after a quick glitch there. So, Ruben, you were just talking about Gran Turismo and you've only seen a few minutes.
I haven't seen much at all. I was just saying I hope they bring back the licensing system. I really like that whole thing where you have to pass these specific challenges to get to that next level. I feel like that was something that was really missing from the Forza stuff. Not suggesting they should just straight up rip it off, but I like that structure.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we're still having tech issues, so I'll wrap it up there, guys. Give it a wave, and we'll see all of our listeners next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Catch you next time.
See you guys.